last several games we've been able to find ways to win, and I think it's one thing when you look at our season and look back at several games and say, man, if we would have done one or two more things, then the record could look a lot different.
A season of what-ifs for the Black and Gold as they have maybe their biggest game of the season and they play their best football against the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're eliminated from playoff contention. Welcome into the Black and Gold Report. I'm Corey Rholdon, joined by ESPN Radio's Matt Musso. And Matt, the Saints team, this is the Saints team we expected from the beginning of the season, right?
Yeah, the one you're seeing right now in the last 3 games for sure. I just took a little while to get there, unfortunately, but they're playing great defense near the top half of the league, especially since really that Raiders game week 8 for sure. I think the pass rush was fantastic. Obviously, we'll get a little bit more into that. But even offensively, Corey, while it's not the juggernaut of an offense that we've seen from the Saints, it's efficient enough to play well behind a good defense, which is what we've seen from New Orleans really the last 3 years.
And you really like the pass rush in this game.
I loved the pass rush in the game. That's my biggest takeaway. Obviously, look, major tip of the cap to Cam Jordan, setting the Saints franchise record for sacks when he got 3 in this game, career record, I should say. So that's fantastic. But look, we talked about Gardner Minshew being in there. It's going to eliminate the quarterback run game, and they made him uncomfortable every single play they could and got them in tough down and distances.
And I really liked the veterans stepping up. Marshawn Lattimore's first game back since early October, gets a pick 6. And Cam Jordan, like you just said, with 3 huge sacks, 6 total sacks by the Saints. And Cam, he breaks the all-time record. The Saints legend moves ahead of Ricky Jackson. An awesome moment for the all-time Saint.
Lots of Matt Ryan. He's been good to me. Happy New Year's, Matt Ryan, if you see it. There's a lot of Cam Newton. Appreciate you, big dog. Best draft class, 2011. There was some Jameis Winston. Love it, because we talked about it, and he didn't realize I had sacked him that many times. I sent him a reel while we were on the plane his first year here.
Cam won't let me take credit for it, but I'll tell him I'll take a little credit. No, that's awesome. It's awesome. Cam's been a great ambassador for our organization, for the entire National Football League. He's been a great player.
Been pushed each and every year. I've always had a phenomenal D-line in terms of mindset of everybody wanted to win each and every snap and pushes each other.
Cam will be in the Saints Ring of Honor and probably will be in the Hall of Fame as well. A Black and Gold legend. All right, so now to the not-so-fun part where we look at the Saints' missed opportunities or blown leads this season. The reason why they're not heading to the playoffs. The first game we're going to look at is against the Vikings on October the 6th in London. The Saints had a 22-19 lead in that game, Matt, and then way too many penalties down the stretch forces a loss.
Yeah, that was kind of the first time you saw that, right? At least to that extent. I mean, penalties and turnovers were big, but the penalties at the end of the Vikings game were way too much for them to overcome, and that was kind of the first time you were like, you let one really get away.
2 weeks later, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase come into the Superdome. The Saints have another 26-21 lead. Really controlled the game for majority of that game and then really blew it with a Jamar Chase touchdown and the Saints offense not being able to capitalize in the red zone.
Yeah, Jamar took over that game in the second half for sure. And Cordy, you remember the narrative going into that game? It was, how come the Bengals can't get Jamar Chase the football?
Yeah.
Teams were taking him away. They were doubling him. The Saints played a lot of single coverage in that game, and Jamar feasted in the second half.
And that's where you missed Marshawn Lattimore. Yeah. He was out that game. And then the next week, 4 days later, against the Cardinals, Andy Dalton has back-to-back interceptions. The Saints were really good in the first half, up 14-6. I wouldn't call this a blown lead, but this was a missed opportunity against a bad Cardinals team. Back-to-back interceptions really hurt that team.
Yeah, that's still like their only home win of the season, which is brutal. But it was Andy Dalton's worst game of the year. I mean, the back-to-back pick sixes, like you said, were too much to overcome. And let's be honest, your defense was subpar in that game as well.
And then lastly, and most importantly, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they were up 13 points with about 3 minutes left. We all remember Mark Ingram not running out a yard short right there. If you win that game, you have a chance of winning the division this week against the Panthers.
Yeah, I don't really have any other takeaway from that other than we did the same time then. Hey, Mark Ingram, get the first down.
And a crazy scenario that was brought up yesterday was a possible 8-seed playoff with the Bills and Bengals game. And the Saints would have had a shot then, but now they're officially out. And it's kind of sad, Matt, because they're playing their best football this season right now, winners of 3 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that stinks, right? We've come here week in, week out, Corey, and said, do they have a chance? And every time the answer was yes, but only because it's mathematical. The New Orleans Saints, the bottom line is, they are a good football team. They are a playoff caliber team. They didn't play like it for long enough in this regular season. They missed opportunity after opportunity. Ultimately, you were in a situation where it was control what you can control. They did that. Unfortunately, when you're in a position where you need help, the help doesn't always come. You should have learned that last year. You should have learned that throughout the history of your franchise. You had a cruel reminder of it this season, though.
Absolutely. Now the Saints will wrap up the season against the Carolina Panthers, a team that they struggled with earlier this season. Way too many turnovers. What is your biggest takeaway of this game?
It's not really a matchup so much, Corey, as I just want to see the Saints defense continue to play at the top 5 level that they have. I mean, this is finally New Orleans Saints, Dennis Allen defense that you're seeing again. We touched on the pass rush earlier, but getting Marshawn Lattimore back has been huge. You saw that in the game. He closed it out. Your secondary has really played well, even despite his absence with Alontae Taylor, Paulson Adebo, guys like that stepping up. But now you have Lattimore back in the fold. That's huge. Continue to rush the passer. You'll be going against Sam Darnold. Play that top 5 level of defense that you've been playing and let them carry you to victory, because that's been your recipe for the better part of 3 years now.
And now you're watching the Saints against the Panthers earlier this year had way too many turnovers. Alvin Kamara on the first drive had a fumble return for a touchdown. Jameis Winston was playing in that game, but Andy Dalton himself had a bad turnover against the Eagles that really killed the Saints' momentum in the first half offensively. So my biggest takeaway of this game, don't turn the football over, all right? Protect the football, let your defense win it, and the offense continue just to get points as they need it. All right, now we're going to toss it over to our Saints writer, Chris Lunkin, who has our keys to victory. Chris?
Yeah, Corey. Look, as we know, the playoffs are out of the equation for the Saints, but they still have an opportunity to end a tough year on a 4-game win streak. And to do that, here are my keys to victory. First, they have to stop the run. Despite their struggles at quarterback, the Panthers have established a decent rushing attack behind running backs Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. Now is the time for the Saints defense to put a stamp on this season by limiting the run game and forcing Sam Darnold to make throws. Second, remain penalty-free. Look, the offense hasn't been the most dynamic during this winning streak, but it helps that they've been relatively mistake-free in comparison to what they were earlier this year. And lastly, finish this season on a high note. And despite this season's hardships, you're on the cusp of an 8-win season, 1 win shy of your total last year under Sean Payton. Mentality of winning has to be at the forefront, and this is exactly the type of momentum that can boost any team and they can rally behind going into next season. So if they do that, I think they have a great shot at winning.
Thank you, Chris. And this is the last Black and Gold report this season. So I want you guys as offensive and defensive MVPs of this team. Let's start with Matt.
All right, I'll start with defense. And, I mean, look, you could easily go with a guy like Alontae Taylor, who stepped up and made a lot of good plays this year. But I'm going to go with Caden Ellis because I don't think anyone stepped up really more on defense than he did. When Pete Werner goes down, he steps in, carries the load at linebacker. And now, honestly, if there comes a time you have to move on from Demario Davis, you feel pretty good about Caden Ellis and Pete Werner being your linebackers. So I'll stick with Caden Ellis there. Offensively, it'd be easy to say Alvin Kamara or Taysom Hill because when your offense has been what it should be, they've been the biggest part of that game plan. But I'm going to go with Juwan Johnson because of the threat he was in the red zone and just the rapport he had with Andy Dalton, and that was really his go-to man for the majority of the season.
Chris?
So I'm going to go with the 2 rookies. My defensive MVP is Alontae Taylor, and I think because when you're one of your most vital pieces, Marshawn Lattimore, he was out for a vast majority of the year. Alontae Taylor stepped up really nicely. He took a lot of tough assignments. We saw what he did with Devontae Adams. It was beautiful to watch. And for my offensive MVP, I think it's obvious that Chris Olave was the most consistent offensive player in my eyes the entire year. He was really the biggest or the most threatful weapon that we had going into the entire year, and he played the most consistent football.
All right, so my defensive MVP, I'm taking a one from the years past. It's Demario Davis for me. Demario Davis didn't miss a game. He was the heart and soul of that Saints defense. In the last several weeks, he's a big part of the reason why the defense is back playing Saints defense that we've known for the past 5 years. Offensively, I'm going with Taysom Hill. He had, 12 total touchdowns this year. He had his best year as a Saint without Sean Payton, which is crazy. And they didn't even use him enough. He had, you saw the graphic in past weeks of how many times the Saints have scored when they've given Taysom Hill the football, and I just think he's been vital to the Saints offense. All right, one thing you want the Saints to do in the offseason, Chris?
Revamp the offensive schemes, evaluate how we play offense and how the Saints move forward in the offensive side of the ball.
I'm looking for staff changes, but not Dennis Allen anymore, obviously, right? We know where that's going. They end this season 3-1 or 4-0. He's getting another year. We've kind of long known that, I think. But is there any changes on the staff? The defensive staff is really coming to their own now, but I think you look at offense, maybe Pete Carmichael, not saying they will do that, not saying they even should do that, maybe more of revamping the scripts. But I'll tell you the other thing, too, is it does deal with the Saints, but what happens with Sean Payton? The most interested I am in the offseason.
No, you're right. And where does Sean Payton go?
Yes.
Does he come back and coach?
And what you get for him if he doesn't.
So like the Colts, and I've heard that the Dolphins might be opening their job if they lose this week, which would be crazy.
Because you need quarterback, right?
Yes.
I think we all know that.
Yes.
The Saints have to fix quarterback. You can't go into next year with Andy Dalton, and I don't think you're going with Jameis Winston. So can you get back into the first round and maybe steal a quarterback? Sean Payton going somewhere else is probably your best opportunity to doing that.
I agree with both of those. And then finally, our score prediction. All right, we'll start with Chris. What is your final score prediction of the year against the Panthers?
I'm going to go 21-10. I think this defense plays lights out against Sam Darnold. And the offense, like I said, I think they'll make enough plays to pull it out.
Sam Darnold's been playing good recently. Let's calm down on the Sam Darnold hate.
I will not calm down on that either. But I think Carolina plays really hard for Steve Wilkes, man. I don't know if he's going to get the job, but listening to Sam Darnold talk about him the other day, he's won a lot of people over in that locker room. So I think they play hard. I think they come up short. I actually do like the Saints here in this one, 23-14.
Big part of the Saints team was finishing 4-0 at the end of the year, right? I think they're going to do that, and they're going to get a 24-21 win, and they're kind of in the season on a good note. A little disappointing that they weren't playing this type of football at the beginning of the year. They end the season on a positive note. Well, thank you guys for joining us each and every week here on the Black and Gold Report. For myself, Chris, and Matt, we'll see you guys next year.